Okay, cool. You see, this is so like I was saying, this is like my life hack here. Yeah, I'll just do a quick intro. So, hey, what's up, guys? My name is Dr. Adrian Mesa. This is Finding Balance podcast. I'm here with my boy Jesse Tarr, who I really don't know, and this is just my life hack to get to know people, bring them in. And the cool part about this is that last week I recorded with this guy named Diego Day, who's out of the UK. This guy has 1 million TikTok followers. He has 500,000 Instagram followers. He has 130,000 YouTube subscribers, right? So then I interview him. Awesome. But just as cool to sit here with you because I see you every day in the gym. You're locked in at 6 a.m., 5 a.m. I don't even know what time you get to the gym.
Yeah.
But you see these familiar faces over and over and over again. And nowadays, it's really difficult to get to know people.
Right.
We're all running our own rat race.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool to just have people come in and sit down, regardless of what their following is on social media, but just to get to know people as people. So it's a pleasure to have you on here, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
That's cool. So I know you're a business owner, but I really don't know much else about what you do or what your life is like. I could just tell you, this is my perception of you, just to be real and raw.
Okay.
Number one, you're a big ass dude, right? You've been working out for a while, but you have this very humble demeanor, right? I mean, I see you in the gym and you say hi to everybody, you approach everyone, and you have this very humble soul. And I think that's what draws people to you because a lot of people might see you from afar and you're an intimidating figure in terms of just body mass, right?
Right.
But once you start talking to them, you can almost see that it's like you're a gentle giant.
Right. Right.
Is that the way you perceive yourself?
I think so. I think so. Especially like with switching up my hairstyle recently. Like before COVID, I had the short hair. When I started getting the longer hair and then I got a little bit bigger, working out, I wasn't traveling as much. I can see people would cross the street and stuff. And that's never really happened to me before.
Yeah. So you're walking on one side of the street and they're jumping to the other side?
Right.
Okay.
And so, but yeah, when I get to talk to people, I can see them kind of disarm. Like, I don't know what perception they have of me.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, he's actually really friendly or he's nice or this or that. And there's a lot of common ground that I have with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to relate to them.
Yeah, that's cool. Have you always been, so you said you just started, you became bigger recently. So, but have you always had to, or have you just always been a humble dude?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it stems from like, upbringing and grade school and all that. And it's funny, like I wasn't always big. I was actually small the majority of my life.
Okay.
When I graduated high school, for example, I was only 5'6".
Okay.
And I was weighing about $160.
And where are you at now? Just so people listening can
6 foot, like 228.
Yeah, dude looks like a running back.
So yeah, big change. And I grew, a lot of that growth came after high school. And then recently is where I started, breaking up above the 210 with the weightlifting and the weight training. Just a late bloomer all around.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
And I think we first started talking. And if there's anything that I'm speaking about or asking you about that, you just don't want to go there, that's cool too.
Yeah.
I respect that 100%.
Sure.
But one of the first encounters we had, you were going through a really difficult time in your life.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how it happened, but you just sort of opened up like off the bat, like, I'm going through it. We all go through it. You made a comment and then we just had an exchange where it's like, oh no, I understand where you're coming from. I'm in the mental health field. I know what that's like with what you're going through.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit on that?
No, yeah, sure. I tell people all the time, there's no court like family court. I've been in different court settings for various scenarios out the course of my life, but family court is I'll call it a special place where I feel like you just get the worst aspects of people. And as a man, it's just a very emasculating place to be. And so I found myself in the middle of a very volatile divorce, and I was just going through it. And I would see you all the time. I was following you on Instagram, and we kind of established that rapport little by little. And it was just like, I think I opened up to somebody one time about it, and it was just so much easier to talk about it versus trying to hold it in.
Of course.
And so just talking about it with you just helped me kind of process it too as I was going through it. Because I don't have a lot of family or friends. I have a couple close friends, but I don't have like this big support network.
Yeah.
And so being able to just talk to somebody and hear their life experience and what they went through, it just helped me get through it. Because man, the day-to-day is tough because you still got to work, you still got to perform, you still got to take care of your family. And then there's this big cloud hanging over you, and it's just a big question mark as to what the damage is going to be and how long it's going to take you to get out of it.
You mentioned that it's emasculating to go through this court. Why do you say that?
I think, at least for my situation, when you're sitting there and you have a bunch of other people, be it the judge, opposing counsel, guardian ad litem, whoever it is, family court counselor, and they're telling you how to run your life. They're dictating your life. I was in court for 10 months, and I think I maybe said 2 to 3 sentences while I was in actual open court. There were depositions where I got to talk outside of the courtroom, but when I'm in court in front of the judge, my whole life is being decided in front of me. What happens with my son, what happens with my business, what happens with my money, my assets, and I just have to sit there, kind of eyes front, very expressionless. I can't, make any expressions or talk back or show any type of emotion if the judge says something, in my opinion, that's crazy. And you just have to kind of sit there and take it. And you just have to show up time after time and just listen to people tell you what's going to happen to your life and what you've built. And to me, that's just, I've never lived my life like that. So to have somebody tell me and dictate to me what's going to happen when they didn't do anything to help me build that or attain that or acquire that, it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
It's a very challenging spot.
What would you say was the most difficult time during that 10-month period?
There was a period where a restraining order was issued against my former wife. And from one day to the next, I was awarded full time sharing, or better known as full custody. And so I went from, my son was being kept from me. And then all of a sudden, now I have my son full time. But I also have to figure out how to keep working and providing. And it was just tough. It was just tough because from one day to the next, I went from trying to see him and him being kept from me to now, okay, you have him full time, figure it out. And daycares were full. I couldn't get him into any daycare. I'm trying to find private providers, but you don't just want to hire anybody to take care of your kid. And at the time, he was 7 months old.
7 months old.
He was 7 months old.
So he's a baby. He's just smiling, just sitting up on his own.
Right. And so he needs that full-time care. And that was tough. That was a really challenging period because I still have to provide for him and make sure he's okay, but also try to make it happen at work. And it was tough.
Did you find it was, do you find that the system is set up to be truly equal?
I don't think so.
Why?
I don't think so. Because they establish trends. They establish what's called the status quo. So in my situation, I met a young lady. I was young at the time, probably 25, 26, and she was pursuing, or her dream was to be a physical therapist. And so she was pursuing that kind of degree and career track. And I had started my business about 7 years ago. And once it started to take off, we were talking, and she was really upset that it was going to take her going to school part-time. A 6-year track was going to take her like 17 years or whatever. So I said, listen, well, if the business does better, let's continue to live like this, but now you can go to school full-time. What I didn't realize was you're setting a precedent for what's going to happen if you ever split. And so once I got married, I didn't have a prenup. I didn't really know anything of those things. I didn't understand male and female psychology. So I just went in blind. And I think that's the worst place to be as a man, is going in blind to something like that. And
like going in blind to marriage.
Yeah, into marriage, just not understanding, what can happen if it goes left.
Yeah.
Not understanding the pros and or cons of a prenup. I feel like, a lot of times as men, we're expected to be providers, or we're expected to go out there and work and hustle and grow and take care of our family. But then what happens is, if for whatever reason you and your partner don't work out and she decides, okay, I'm done with this, and divorces you, now you've set this precedent in the court's eyes where you've maintained a standard of living. And they're going to impute income, and they're going to look at your gross, not your net. And it's just the way they calculate things makes it extremely difficult to recover from.
Yeah.
It's a catastrophic event for you, not just financially, but I think mentally too. Because if you can't provide, well, then you're not competent. You're not able to take care of your children. So your children start getting taken from you too. And you're just kind of left with nothing, and you got to rebuild.
Yeah, I think that I had a similar. I've never even spoken about this on the mic before, but I can relate to you 100% because I was working full time, allowing my ex to stay home a lot more, and then when it comes time to decide what this child support rate is going to be,
Right.
they're not saying, "Oh, both of you have the same education and both of you have the potential to make the same." They're just looking like, "Oh, this was these past 2 years. This was your salary. This was her salary,
Right.
and that's it." And I'm thinking, wait, she has the same degree as me and she has an MBA and I supported her through these times in her life.
Right.
And now I'm just obligated to pay this much money no matter what.
Right.
Like the court's looking at this ass backwards. We
Right.
have the potential to make the same, but if she chooses to do less and just because I have more ambition or I'm just playing the game differently,
Right.
then I suffer consequences of owing more money.
Right.
That doesn't make sense to me. And I'm sure there's going to be some women listening, well, you should pay more. But really, I'm looking at this just logically. Let's take away sex. Let's just say
Right.
it's person A and person B.
Right.
And person A and B have the same degrees and the same potential to make the same money. But person B just decides that they're going to work less. And even moving forward, because even if I take her to court now, she has still remained choosing to work less.
Right.
And as a result, no matter what, if I take her back, I'm still making more because I'm pushing hard and I'm growing a business and growing a company. So I might even take her back to court thinking, oh, maybe I can pay her a little bit less. And then they're going to tell me to pay even more.
Right.
So I'm just, at this point, I'm like, oh, I'm locked in for the next 4 years. My daughter's 14.
Okay.
But yeah, I can relate. And that's why I asked you, do you feel like is there true equality in the justice system when it comes to parenting, when it comes to those parenting plans that we develop?
I don't think so. I think they try to do their best, maybe. My view on the justice system is skewed completely.
Why is that?
I'm black and white. So I feel that the justice system is flawed. I feel that, the 14th Amendment and some things that are going on are by design. It's not an accident. It's not an accident that the majority of the prison population is black. It's not an accident that they're not getting rehabilitated. Like we look at other countries in Europe and what they do for drug rehabilitation and mental rehabilitation. They actually upskill people. I mean, I'm not saying you're going to go into prison and become a doctor,
Yeah.
but you can go into prison and you can come out with a trade or a skill and become a productive, contributing member to society.
I agree.
Versus in America, you can go in, now you're a felon, you can't get any professional certifications, you can't get a job at most places, and your opportunities are so limited and curtailed. It's no wonder a lot of people turn back to doing what they used to do. It's no wonder that they feel like their options are limited. And then the probation parole system. I've been to jail twice. Minor charges, nothing crazy, but even the times that I went to jail, the way that it was gone about, like one of the charges was resisting arrest nonviolently. Mm-hmm. And it was in Hialeah. It was actually here in Florida. And simply what was happening was I was having
It was in Hialeah. I'm wearing a Hialeah shirt.
It was in Hialeah. Yeah. And Hialeah's finest came out and I was just having a conversation with them. I can candidly say that I was having a conversation with them. I wasn't being rude or disrespectful. And I remember the turning point was, hey, as a citizen, I should be able to ask you some questions about this alleged investigation. And as a police officer, you should be able to answer some of my questions. Mm-hmm. And then that's where it was like, well, where are you from? And who do you think you are? And just turn around. And at that point, I'm like, but wait, what? You're going to jail. I'm like, but wait, why am I going to jail? Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to understand what's going on here. And so I feel like the police have an insane amount of power. And oftentimes, I'm not saying they're all bad apples, but I'm saying when you get in a situation, their word carries the weight of the state versus you, John Doe.
Of course.
So they can, they made allegations in the report that I physically assaulted the arresting officer. I punched him in the chest. I pushed him over the patrol car. I read the report.
Yeah.
Well, if that was in the report, why wasn't I charged with felony assault and battery on a Leo? Because it never happened.
Yeah.
And this was right before dash cams. I mean, not dash cams, body-worn cameras came out. So, but I was under-resourced. I was 19. I had no money. I couldn't get a lawyer. I filed a complaint with Internal Affairs, but we investigated ourselves. We found we did nothing wrong. So my view, just based on personal experiences, is that it's skewed. So when you go back, just bringing it back full circle to family court, it's in the civil division. Yeah, they might have tried to get it right. And I think there is a place for it, because if people are just disagreeing, there's got to be some authority having body that can make a decision. Or otherwise you end up maybe with like a Wild West scenario. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I don't think it's fair. Like similar to your situation, I put her through school. And what my reward for that was, the court was going to say, okay, well, we're looking at what you've done over the past 4 years, and we're looking at what she's done. And we're not going to impute any of her skill. I mean, at this point, I have a bachelor's degree. She has a doctorate. Mm-hmm. We're going to give you all of her debt, which was about $275,000. She's going to take all of your assets.
Wait, say that again?
So she
had to take on all of her school debt?
If we would have finally got to that hearing, but we had some preliminary hearings where they were going over the numbers, and I was going to have to take over all of her school debt, because when they did the asset distribution calculator, she's down here, she's negative 275. She has no money. She just graduated. Now she's opting to not work. She's just not working. And she told me in so many words, I mean, I'm not going to put it on air right now because there's open case, but she basically told me in so many words, I'm not working until I get my money. And then I'm stuck. So we go to this hearing, and my lawyers have a serious conversation with me. Like, what are you going to do? Because she's going to take everything you've built. The business was going to get imploded. And I was going to get, as, to make it equal, I was going to take on her debt. And that was how the spreadsheet worked. And that's what it was. And Florida's one of the states where they don't impute skills. Like, I know there's some states, I can't remember off the top of my head, I think maybe Texas, but if you were to put your spouse into a professional program or help them upskill themselves, they'll take that into account when they're doing these calculations. What does that actually mean in practice? I don't know. But Florida, it's just like, well, hey, you were a great partner, but you're not partners anymore. So this is what we deem as equal. So no, I don't think it's equal.
Yeah, that's bizarre. That's bizarre. You said that. I'm going back to the police officers. You mentioned that there's a few bad apples.
Yeah.
If there were a few bad apples that were pilots, there would be a complete revamp, and every once in a while a pilot just went kamikaze and decided to crash an airplane. I think there would be an uproar about it, and I think we would do something about it.
Yeah.
But now we have a few bad apples, quote unquote, with police officers, and I think the system as a whole needs to be revamped. And I think there's a couple of things that it boils down to. One is just the initial training. Maybe the age at which an officer has the ability to become an officer and carry a gun. Right. Maybe the level of education even. Right. I'm not an officer, so I don't exactly know what the training is like. But I can tell you that from a psychological perspective, these guys are dealing with compounding trauma day after day after day. And it's like you go from one trauma scene to the next, and then you can then go to somebody who gets in a court. You can go from seeing a dead child to then the next call, which is like, I don't know, just a motor vehicle accident. Right. And then you just keep going throughout your day. And it's the same for fire rescue. Right. So I think there's some level of compounding trauma that doesn't allow you to process information the same way as everybody else, unless there's a period of processing what you've experienced. Right. There's a ton of substance use, alcohol use amongst any first responder. Right. And I think it boils down to that. Like, how are we processing all of these things? What initial training are we getting? How emotionally aware are we of ourselves? And then the system itself, like, don't hide corruption. Let's expose corruption so we can do something about it. And so that way there's not all these questions and protests about the behavior of people who are in law enforcement. Right. I think the vast majority, I want to say 98.5%, are excellent officers who really care about the public that they serve. Right. And they're well-intentioned. But then the question is, when that 1.5% does something, do the rest of the officers look the other way, or do they call them out?
Well, that's where the like back the blue, right, comes in. Yeah. And a lot of times we've seen where officers are whistleblowers, and we see how they get handled. They get reprimanded, they get demoted, they get terminated, they get scolded, they get hazed, whatever might be going on. So it creates this system where that type of thing is protected, because it's more important to protect the organization versus the individuals that it's serving. And so I feel like when you have a situation like that, you're just going to perpetuate what we see. And I think the only difference is now, it's not that it's maybe happening more or less. I just think we're more aware because everybody has a camera.
Yeah.
Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody, we're recorded probably the vast majority of our lives, especially when we're coming outside. So you're seeing things pop up on camera that 20, 30 years ago, just nobody knew. Nobody was the wiser.
Yeah, it's no longer based on public opinion. It's based on public observance of what's actually happening.
Right.
And we can't hide from that anymore.
Right.
And I want to stress, I truly believe that the majority of officers are legit.
Right.
And they're really trying to do the best that they can.
Right.
Because I know that people will easily twist your words once you say something. Oh no, I don't know. I question law enforcement. Hey, I question a lot of things, guys. I question religion. I question church organizations. I question nonprofit organizations.
Right.
I think we need to.
Yeah.
I think if we want to improve, we got to question ourselves. We have to look at ourselves in the mirror.
Right.
So, yeah, it's interesting. And I won't even get into the jail system, but I do want to say this: 90% of the people who, at one point or another, are placed in solitary confinement are eventually released back into the public. Right. 90%. If we're not doing anything to help the people who are just basically putting in human kennels, we're just stuffing them in there
right.
for the sake of profit. Most people are going to come back out into society. So do we want to take that money and actually invest in them instead of just having some sort of profit organization, a for-profit organization benefit from it?
Right.
Or do we want to reinvest into humans so that way when they come back out into society, they have something to contribute?
Yeah. I mean, I think the answer to that is simple. I mean, a society is only as strong as its weakest link.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see a lot of the benefits, and we don't have to wonder. I mean, we can just look at what other countries, other places are doing, and we see a lot of the benefits of, like I was talking about, like, for example, in Portugal, they have decriminalized a lot of Schedule I narcotics, which over here, might cause a lot of uproar, but they're rehabilitating these people. A lot of these people are coming out with a skill. They now have a way to make money, and they have something that keeps them from doing those narcotics, from dealing with those types of people. And now they're coming out and they're being productive. Yeah. So now the tax burden is less because you're not constantly cycling these people through a system, and they're just being a drain on society financially. They're being a drain on their families. They're being a drain on the police force. Mm-hmm. Now this person has been rehabilitated. They're paying taxes. They're adding back to society. They're contributing. They have a skill, whether they're a welder or a plumber or a janitor or whatever it is, but they're able to do something and have that purpose and have that sense of belonging. And I don't like drugs. The war on drugs, right?
It's garbage.
It's the bloodiest, longest war we've ever been in, and you can't stop it because as long as you can make the type of money that you can make off getting that stuff, from outside the country, inside the country, there's going to be somebody that's going to do it. Why? Same thing. You're only as strong as the weakest member of your society. So if you have people that are desperate and it's between getting drugs into a country or starving to death, they're gonna do what they have to do to survive.
They're gonna swallow pellets of heroin and bring it into the country. Like what people do.
We got to get people out of survival mode.
Yeah. Not only that, I was just in New York City, and let me tell you something. New York City smells like weed on every corner now because it's legal, right?
Yeah.
You can smoke. But then I'm smelling weed everywhere, and I'm like, man, I'm sure there's people over on Rikers right now, on Rikers Island, for possession of marijuana.
Right.
So now it's legal.
Right.
And so people are smoking publicly, but then there's still people locked up for 25 years for an offense for carrying a blunt, 20 years ago.
Right.
It's kind of ass backwards if you ask me. Not only that, I mean, I work in psychiatry where we prescribe a lot of benzos, Xanax, Klonopin. I can prescribe a lot of different drugs.
Right.
Adderall, so methamphetamines, and we prescribe it legally. Mm-hmm. So in one sense or another, I'm a legal drug dealer. Obviously, we don't want to get people to the point where we're addicted, and we constantly educate them about the drugs that we're prescribing, and we try to use evidence-based care before we prescribe them. But all in all, like, it's black and white. We're prescribing drugs that some people abuse.
Right.
And some people are locked up for abusing drugs. I mean, why are they abusing it? I mean, I don't want to get into the opioid epidemic, but if you guys want to really dive in, and you want something that's easily digestible for almost anybody, you watch either Painkiller or what's the other one? what's the other one? Dope Sick. Oof. I think Dope Sick is on Hulu and Painkiller is on Netflix. That alone paints a beautiful picture of what big pharma is, and in terms of how they have caused a major opioid epidemic, and a lot of people are incarcerated for it, while the actual producers of the drug, who frankly just did things for profit, again, just for the sake of money, created the epidemic, and they are not behind bars. They made about $4 billion and walked away.
Right.
So it's bizarre.
Yeah.
Anyhow, how is fatherhood treating you?
Oh, it's been an amazing experience.
Because I've seen you walking around the Grove with your stroller, with your little boy. What's your son's name again? Kenzo. That's right. So I see you walking around Kenzo, and again, big dude, usually has braids.
Yeah.
And he's just minding his business, walking through the Grove.
Yeah.
How's that life treating you?
Oh, I love it, man. Kenzo, I think him coming into the picture during that time really saved me. It really helped me from, I never had like suicidal ideologies or anything, but I think that having that little human to come home to, and he was always happy, and seeing him grow and enjoy just the simplest things in life, and everything is a wonder and a mystery, and there's so much joy, has just brought a lot of joy to me. And then being able to be a father to him. I love my dad to death. I think he did the best he could. But there was definitely a lot of room for improvement, and more so than most. And I don't want to blast him on air, but I'll just say there was a lot of room for improvement, even to this day. And so just being able to break that generational curse, be present, not abusing substances or anything of that nature, and just really being able to be a father to him. And I find that the more I pour into myself and work on personal development, the more he benefits. Yeah. One thing he's helped me with tremendously is patience, because this little boy will, he'll tear apart my apartment, and, he breaks things, and he pulls stuff out of the refrigerator and spills it all over the floor. And he looks at me and he kind of laughs, and I'm like, all right, son, let's clean this up. Clean up time.
Yeah.
How do I reframe and show him like, hey, don't do this, but at the same time, clean up. So it's just been awesome. It's been awesome being able to be his father, be present, play with him, read to him, help him with his language. I'm a room parent at his school, so I'm heavily involved in, his school and what he's got going on from Monday through Friday, and just being able to be involved and be a part of his life. One of the things that parents always say to me, old, young, across every race and culture, is it goes quick. Don't blink. Enjoy it while it lasts. And so I just want to be as present as much as possible and create those memories and enjoy it, because pretty soon he won't be 2, then he'll be 3, and then he'll be 14, and enjoying the different phases and chapters of his growth and development, and also, my walk as being a father.
What are some things that you, because obviously, look, everybody has downfalls, and we're always looking to improve on what our parents did for us, right? What are some things that you did take from your dad that you definitely are instilling in Kenzo?
I think he tried. I think his intentions were pure.
Yeah.
I think he tried. My dad was definitely a visionary, a big dreamer. Execution maybe was a little poor, but big dreamer, big visionary, and trying to be present. So I think just having that, showing up every day and trying to be present and wanting to be a part of things, I think those were some good things that I can pull from my dad.
Yeah. My dad, and I've said this before, my dad is, or he's always been a provider. My dad's had a tire shop for, I don't even know how, 35 years now. But his life took place within that tire shop. Yeah. And even, my dad, Thanksgiving Day, he's going to a tire shop. Christmas Day, he's going to a tire shop. Even right now, today, I haven't seen, my dad has been in this office only once because I pressured him. I was like, yo, I've been open for 2 years. How come you haven't come by here? But as I've gotten older, I realized, like, you start to look at your parents and say, wait, why are they the way they are?
Yeah.
And I learned that my dad, when he was about 7 years old, his biological mom left him. And when you start thinking about the development of a human, you start to realize, oh, wait, there's some attachment issues that are formed there.
Right.
Because this person who's supposed to nurture and care for you abandons you and leaves you.
Right.
So what does that do for how he displays his love? So my dad's display of love has always been that of just provider. If I call him and I say, I need $1,000, I need $2,000, he's going to give it to me. Dad, I need 4 tires. I don't have money.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell him that, but he won't even blink.
Right.
People go to his shop and he just, they say, hey, I don't have money right now, Benny. My mom used to flip. You can't just be, this is a business. You can't just be giving things out for free. And my dad would always say, if you take care of the community takes care of you.
Right.
And again, his business has been open for 35 years. But the reason I'm telling you the story is that I began to kind of, as I've gotten older and more mature, instead of having these unrealistic expectations of the love I want my dad to display to me, I know that that's not the love he's going to show me.
Right.
I know that if I want to see my dad, I just need to go to the tire shop.
Right.
And you know what he's going to do? He's going to hug me. He's going to say, oh, what's up? How's it going? Do you want some coffee? Do you want me to get you something from next door? That's the way he's going to show me love.
Yeah.
He's not going to call me. He doesn't know what my birthday is. Like, people might think this is bizarre.
Right.
But imagine if we place these expectations of the love we want to receive on everyone around us,
Right.
we're going to end up constantly disappointed.
Right.
And as I realized like his childhood and what he went through, I said, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand him. And I'll never get that love from him. So I can't paint this negative picture of my dad. I could tell you what his downfalls are for sure.
Right.
He doesn't know my birthday. Like, hello.
Yeah.
But his intention, just like you said about your dad, his intentions are good.
Right.
He just never he never sifted through the trauma that he experienced, and still to this day he's never sifted through that trauma.
Right.
And if I bring it up, you know what he's gonna say? I don't want to talk about that shit.
Right. Yeah.
I got work to do.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I think us as we develop as people, and we're looking at ourselves in the mirror and we're working on personal development, we spend a lot more time looking in the mirror, because when we start looking inward, now the more we understand ourselves and our behavior, the more we can accept people for who they are.
Right.
Doesn't mean we don't have to set boundaries, but we can accept them and love them for who they are and not expect things that we'll never get from them.
Right.
Because that's just going to create more. I could be
Friction.
pissed at my dad right now.
Yeah.
I'd be angry at him right now.
Right.
Just because.
Right.
So that was a rant, but
No, I mean, I can relate to it though. Like I think that was a big turning point. I think I went through a period in my 20s where I was, upset with my father.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a time period there where he kind of disowned me because we're actually in the same business. And my understanding when I came on was, hey, help me grow this business. Let's have a conversation again in 6 months, end of the year, and let's talk about partners. I want to be 50-50 with you. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, great. And so I just bust my ass. It was 12, 14, 16-hour days, working 6-7 days a week, because I see that goal and I see it's helping the bottom line, and I'm getting a lot of fulfillment out of what I'm doing, and every day is a new day. And I prepared a report and I had everything ready. And long story short, he wasn't with what he said 6 months ago. In fact, it was something completely different. It was so different that I said, hey, you know what? Just forget I brought the whole thing up. Just keep me where I'm at. I was making $20 an hour at the time. Hey, just keep me at the $20 an hour. Let's just drop the whole thing. It's fine. And he didn't want to hear that. So that ended up causing me to branch out and do my own thing. And because of that, typical falling out, family and business, he kind of disowned me. And when I don't even say kind of, he did. He stopped talking to me. I mean, we'd run into each other in public. He would walk past me and do that like shoulder bump thing like you see in the movies.
How recent is this?
This was probably like 2017.
Oh, so not too long ago, man.
2017. Yeah. And then that was, let's say, like January, February. And then I want to say like March. No, maybe not March, maybe April. He had a really, really bad stroke. Took him out. He was in the hospital for like 3 months. He was in outpatient for like another month after that. He had to have his skull opened up, and they had to remove a growth and then put it back together. And so he hasn't been really the same since. Mm-hmm. He's a lot back more to himself now than he was. But I thought that event would be like a wake up. And in some ways it wasn't, but in a lot of ways, in some ways it was, but in a lot of ways it wasn't. It just wasn't. And so I had to realize, like, hey, this is who he is. Mm-hmm. And when you mentioned sifting through trauma, I don't think he sifted through any of the trauma. Mm-hmm. Zero. Yeah. Different era. They look at, I think, mental health like, oh, that's crazy, that's shunned upon. And I feel like also the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to face that stuff. Because then at some point when you look inward, you realize you're accountable for your entire universe. Mm-hmm. And to be accountable, and if you don't like the picture of your life as you're 50, 60, 70, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And so I've had to meet him where he's at. I've definitely forgiven him, and I have boundaries. I don't get into certain topics. I try to keep it light. I love him for who he is and what he did, because it helped shape me into who I am today. But I also know that, hey, there's some boundaries here. But yeah, no, I relate to it. He is likely going to leave this earth exactly the same way that he is. And nothing, I thought maybe that stroke would have been a real wake up, and it really wasn't. And that's okay, because that's who he is, and I love him for it. And hopefully, something is different, but if it's not, that's okay too.
Yeah. I think, I mean, it's true what you said, though. Imagine at 50, 60, 70, 80, somebody's trying to point out these things in your life that you should be accountable for. And it's so much easier to blame the world around you or the events that happened to you, rather than saying, well, what was my contribution to that?
Right.
And I think I can say the same thing about every downfall I've had.
Yeah.
And actually, the guy who was on here last, he said something really wise. A 22-year-old guy. He said, if you just start taking accountability for everything that happens to you in your life, it changes the game.
Yeah.
And I think he's 100% right.
Right.
Because if we just start looking at a divorce, what was my fault in the divorce? At least I can work on. I have something to work with.
Yeah.
Right. My business fails. I have something to work with. Somebody leaves me hanging. All right. What's my fault in this?
Right.
Interpersonal conflicts. Everybody always wants to point the finger to the other person.
Right.
And if we just all slow down and say, wait, I fucked up. I did something wrong in this. What is it? Let's start dissecting this. What could I have done differently? Then now you have some accountability and you have something to work with.
Right.
Otherwise, we're just playing the blame game for the rest of our lives, and we're so righteous and everybody else is wrong and I'm the victim in this life.
Right.
I cannot stand victim mentality.
Yeah. There's a picture online. It's like a meme, and there's this guy. He's like holding his legs, and you don't see him. He's like drowning.
Yeah.
And then it shows the cross section. It's like, just stand up.
Yeah, just stand up.
Get up.
Yeah.
And what you said just now, in your life, you are the common denominator.
Yeah.
In the experiences, the business, the job, the relationships, you're the common denominator. So I feel like the more you look within, like I really looked within after divorce.
Yeah.
Like, take me all the way back. And, this whole journey on mental health, and I reframed, in a lot of ways, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But in a lot of ways, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Mm. And I'm grateful. I've really been focusing on gratitude, being grateful.
Why do you say it was one of the best things that happened to you? What has happened as a result?
It was a catalyst for me really diving into mental health. Not that I was against mental health or had any type of stigma towards it, but where I come from, my parents, like, it just was not an avenue. So I kind of had to stumble and find it on my own. Diving into mental health has really helped me understand myself better, which has helped me to understand and interact with the world around me much better. My team, other people. It's helped me regulate a lot of emotions. I've become a lot more emotionally intelligent and emotionally mature, which I feel like if you as a man can master your emotions, man, that's awesome. That's you're dangerous at that point. Yeah. There's nothing you can't do. Can't be attached to the wrong person. Love it or hate it, I was attached to the wrong person. And so at some point, either that person's going to be an anchor, or I'm going to be an anchor, or we're both going to be anchors, but it's just not going to work. And then I'm going to perpetuate the same things that I was trying to stop. I want to show Kenzo what a healthy relationship looks like, not dysfunction. Now I have the opportunity to do that. I want to grow and scale my business. If you're not with the right person and they don't understand what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go, that's going to be very challenging for you. There's going to be a lot of conflict and friction there. Mm-hmm. So I just think it helped me understand life. It helped me understand male and female psychology, relational psychology. I just dove into all these topics. I never had that uncle or that big brother or that person to say, hey, look, man, this is how it really goes down. Yeah. This is what you should be focused on. I just was kind of, go to school. I joined the military, go to school, get a good career, fall in love. Yeah, she checks these couple boxes. I think that's good family, and everything should be okay, right? No, like, no, there's so much more to life, to relationships, to understanding yourself than the trajectory that I was on. So I took accountability. Like, ignorance is not an excuse. And it's hard because if you don't know, how do you know what to look for? You don't know until you know. But this was a way that really opened up my eyes and really has me diving very, very deep into understanding things better, especially before I jump into them. And so I think it was it was hard to see it maybe a year or two ago, but now it's been a great thing. It's been a great thing.
And how did you dive into mental health? What are you doing?
I started seeing a therapist, and it was funny because my ex was on me about therapy. You know, there was an incident that happened, and she basically flipped it against me. That, you know, talk about the victim mentality, and then I started going to therapy, and when I went to therapy, I was able to control my emotions better, and I was able to set boundaries. Like, I didn't even know what setting a boundary was. I didn't understand that. I'm able to set boundaries. I'm able to understand triggers, diving into why is that a trigger. Now when it happens, now I'm not getting upset. Now I'm not projecting. I'm not taking things that have happened because I was driving down A Street and people were crazy in Miami into the house, or vice versa. I'm not taking that stuff out onto the road to somebody that did nothing. So I just became much better at mastering my emotions through going to therapy. And it had, I don't want to say the craziest effect, but it kind of had a back effect on her. I think she thought it was going to make me, I don't know, less than or kind of cower into some type of shadow of who I am. But really, it just made me much more comfortable with who I am. And I was able to do things like, hey, if you're not willing to have a civilized conversation about this, then I don't think this is an appropriate time for us to talk.
And she liked that charged friction that was going on.
Yeah. And what that would do is, well, why is it on your time? And I'd be like, well, again, I said what I said. It doesn't seem you're in a space that we can talk about this right now. So
that was trying to hear. Yeah. So if you are an emotionally charged person, and now you are coming level-headed and saying, hey, you know what, this is probably not an appropriate time. No, we should have this conversation right now.
Right.
Well, that's not the time.
Right.
Nothing is gonna get solved.
Right. And so I think what happened was I better understood myself and how to have and handle those types of things. She didn't want to, and now what she always used to do wasn't working. And so now she's even more mad because I understand. I know my worth. I know my value. I know how to have a conversation with you. And I would say things like flat out, like, hey, I want to fix this, or I'm willing to participate in a constructive conversation, but you're not talking to me in a constructive manner. So I really need you to either, you know, get a drink of water, and maybe we can reconvene in 15 minutes or 4 hours or after work or whatever works for you. But this is not the type of venue to have this conversation. And I would stick to my guns. You know, I think before, one of the things I learned too is it's okay if somebody walks away. Like, I think a lot of times there's this fear, and, you know, talking about attachment issues, I think I have a lot of attachment issues. Like, my mom and dad they weren't there a lot of the time. And it was because they were working. They didn't abandon the household, but I think there was some other stuff that went into it. Like, now they're going through a divorce. I think they should have got divorced. I'm 34. They probably should have got divorced 33 years ago, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
I think they stayed together for the sake of the kids.
Of course.
But I think that might have done more damage than good, as they thought. And so they weren't there a lot. I had to kind of raise my sister through elementary and middle school. And the attachment issues, I think I would get really attached to women because my mom was gone a lot. And I was maybe subconsciously searching for that nurturing, that loving, that acceptance, and it wasn't there. And so I attached myself. You know, a girl will speak to me nicely and, you know, give me a hug or show me some affection. I'm like, oh my God,
yeah, you melt.
Adrian, she's amazing. she hugged me, or you know, whatever. And it's like, bro, that's basic. That's basic. Elementary school stuff.
Yeah.
You know, or the you know, people. And I'm not just blaming women, but
of course.
People in relationships, you show up and they're showing you their representative. I fall in love with the representative quick. And then a couple months later, when it's not the representative, it's a communication issue, or because I'm thinking that's the best I can do. not realizing like, hey, if that's your representative, that's fine, but that doesn't work for me and where I'm headed. And I think you have to have those principles and those boundaries, and it really helped me reinforce those principles and boundaries. And the crazy thing was, in working with the therapist, it's like, you are this person at work. You've built this business, you have boundaries, you have goals, you don't take, do you let people just not pay you? Do you let people just come in and, rework systems that you have that are proven? Mm-hmm. No, you have processes, you have procedures, there's a business plan. So why are you running your life like you don't know what you're doing? And that was really powerful for me working through that. Because I get it, like life and business are different, but in a lot of ways they're very much similar. And I think it gets a bad connotation because people are like, oh, that's all work and no play. But your life has to have structure. You got to have boundaries, rules. You have to have things that you're willing to stand on and things that you're willing to accept and things that you're not.
Yeah.
Everybody has free will. And so I really realized that, like, hey, if this isn't what we thought it was, that's okay. Like, I'm not mad at you. It is what it is. We gave it an honest and fair shot, but to continue on this track isn't going to work for me. So what are we going to do?
Yeah. I think a lot of people, they have the most difficult time for them is the point of separation. Mm-hmm. And just like you were saying, it's the same in work and in relationships, in work and in life. The termination of a relationship at your workplace doesn't have to be this blowout. Fuck you, mm-hmm. You're okay, fuck you too, I'm out. No, it doesn't have to be that.
Right.
It can just be like, hey, like, I've outgrown this place. Thank you so much for everything you've contributed to me, and I hope that you feel the same way about me. But I think I'm going to move on and go somewhere else.
Right.
We don't do that.
No.
Because most people start to have this animosity towards either the workplace or the relationship rather than just looking internally and saying, wait, I don't feel comfortable here anymore, and that's okay. It's probably it's time for me to step out.
Right.
Most people can't deal with that for some reason. And I've seen it. I've seen it with people that are starting to come to work irritable. And it's like, you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. No, it's obvious you're not okay.
Right.
In a relationship, is that everything okay with you? Everything is fine. Well, no, everything isn't fine. It's obvious. You're waking up pissed off. Like, if you're not happy to be here, then it's okay for you not to be here. Let's talk it through and then separate. You mentioned something interesting earlier, which is that your parents stayed together for 34 too many years, right?
Right.
For the sake of the kids.
Right.
How often do you think that happens, and did that happen to you where you felt like this pressure to keep the family together for the sake of Enzo?
Oh, I mean, I think one, it happens very often. I think as we're starting as a society to wake up more to mental health and the importance of it. But I think also too, like financially, inflation's out of control. I don't think it's coming down. That's a whole separate topic. But what that creates is, hey, I can't leave this person. How am I going to survive? Like I've run the numbers. I can't afford to get a studio. I can't afford to put food on the table. And then, there's the whole, if you're divorced or if you have kids, it just gets that much more complicated. There's that many more layers. I think for myself, I knew Kenzo was on the way. And for me, I always just looked at it as, hey, she's just going through a time right now, right? This is going to get better. And I just kept telling myself, hey, this is going to get better. This is going to get better. And I think that's one of my biggest downfalls. That's one of my biggest character flaws. Optimism and perseverance. Sometimes you got to recognize, like, hey, read the writing on the wall, man. And I usually don't make those types of, errors in analysis, whether it be character or a business deal. But man, when I mess up big. Yeah. Like I might not make a bunch of small ones, but those 2 or 3, I really make them count. And so in this one, I think it was just like, I'm married to this person. I'm committed to this person. This was the plan. I don't know what the hell is going on, but this has got to be temporary. Like this is supposed to be a great time. You just graduated, baby's on the way. We bought a house. Like what could be wrong?
Yeah, we should be on top of the world right now.
We should be on top of the world. Things are going to really start to pick up. And it just wasn't. Mm-hmm. And I think part of it too was I didn't want to feel guilty. I didn't want to just throw in the towel and be like, man, F it, I'm out of here. I wanted to be able to, like, there was a conversation I had with myself where if this doesn't work, I want to be able to sleep easy at night. I want to know that I did everything possible in my power to make it work. I don't necessarily think that was the right mentality looking back, but it has let me sleep easy at night because I did. I went to the counseling. I did the marriage counseling for 3 or 4 marriage counselors, and she would pick them. And basically, we would reach a point in the marriage counseling where the marriage counselor would say, well, you know, have you considered this? No, I don't like that person. They're by da-da-da. We need a new one. Okay.
Yeah.
And I continued to work with my individual counselor. But yeah, I think there was that pressure. You don't want to walk away. You don't want to be that guy.
I felt like a failure as a father.
Yeah.
I did. That's what I went to therapy for a long time. Just
Right.
feeling like I failed my daughter. And because I'll never forget, my daughter was 7 when we told her that we were separating. And she was sitting on my lap, and I was just kind of explaining to her. We both were just talking to her about it.
Right.
She just broke down crying. She was like, I never thought this would happen to me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm destroying this little girl.
Right.
But through it, it's taken, she's 14 now, so it's been a long time.
Right.
But it's, in a strange way, it felt weird because in one way it made me feel like I was a better father.
Yeah.
Felt like the time, so we have split custody, and I felt like the time that I was spending with her, I was investing a lot more of myself during those hours,
right,
or during those days, and I would say it out loud, like, or I said it in therapy once, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not coming home and just sitting in front of the TV. I want to engage with her.
Right.
I want to have a conversation. I want to know what's going on with her. I want to take her out and go somewhere."
Right.
So I remember, and then I had 4 days of me being by myself. So then I felt good.
Right.
Because now I'm living the single life.
Right.
I'm able to go out to just go on dates, and
right.
all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I'm enjoying my life a lot now. There's
right.
some guilt in that.
Right.
There's some guilt in it because you ended this thing where you had these dreams and aspirations of growing this nuclear family, of this beautiful family, the white picket fence, both with college degrees, both professionals, educated, raising your daughter with love, getting her on the soccer team, being a soccer coach, all these things.
Right.
And then that's gone. This dream is shattered, but then you feel guilt about enjoying life again.
Right.
So fucking weird.
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah. No, I relate to that too. I mean,
Yeah.
Kenzo, he was much younger, going through it in his infancy, but I remember feeling, breaking down and crying sometimes after I put him down. Like, man, I failed this little boy.
Yeah.
I was this wasn't supposed to happen. Now, he's gonna see a ugly side of relationships and things that I didn't want him to see. I failed to protect him.
Yeah.
I failed to provide for him, and it's just interesting hearing, the similarities in that, because I mean, the feeling of being a failure, and then also. For me, I had 100% custody for almost a year.
Jeez.
So I mean, it was me and him everywhere.
Yeah.
We were 2 peas in a pod. And when the court started to reunify and my custody started to drop down in increments to now it's 50-50, I kind of felt lost without him for a second, because it was like, man, I have all this time. I don't know what to do. Well, I guess I can dive into this stuff, or I can go on dates, or I can do this or that, but man, what's he doing? Is he okay?
Yeah.
What's going on? And that was a big adjustment period for me. But like you said, I'm trying to reframe and see the positives. You do have that recharge. And being a parent is tough. And even in a 2-parent household, being a single parent is, hats off to everybody that does it. But being able to have that, whether, whatever the arrangement is, when you're on your off week or you're on your off days, have that recharge, I found myself the same. I'm that much more intentional. Mm-hmm. When I'm with him, it's like everybody at work knows, okay, this is a week where Jesse has his son. So don't schedule meetings after this time. Pay attention to his calendar, because he's probably got a lot going on in terms of being, mystery reader or dressing up as Santa Claus or whatever. All those little things. Because you're that much more intentional.
Yeah.
So that has been, and I go through the weeks with him, and he wears me out, and by Sunday I'm like, my goodness.
Yeah, I got a break now.
And then I get a break.
But what's cool about this conversation, as you're talking, I'm thinking, people who are in a 2-parent household need to hear this,
Yeah.
because you need to give your partner a break to go hang out with the boys or go to the gym for 4 hours or go sit in a Starbucks and just disconnect.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of codependency where the family has to move together everywhere as a unit.
Right.
And now in my relationship that I'm in currently, I'm very outspoken about, hey, no, this time is for me.
Yeah.
You're gonna go see your parents. That's awesome. Go tell them I said hi. I send my love.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lay low today.
Yeah.
Before, Adrian would not say that.
Right.
Adrian would go and in his mind would want to be somewhere else.
Right.
So now when I go, it's because I want to be there. And it's not because I have anything against where she's going or who she's going to be with.
Right.
I just understand myself a lot more.
Right.
And I know what I want. And it's okay for me to want what I want.
Right.
I think a lot of people struggle with that, especially people who are in relationships where there is that, no, you're coming with me. How could I show up to the birthday party and you're not there?
Right.
How do I explain that to people?
Right.
You know how you do it? You say, I stayed home.
Right.
And whatever judgment they want to have, who cares?
Right.
It's irrelevant to your life.
Right.
Unless you internalize it and you place value on it.
Right.
And I think it's so important. That takes just a level of maturity, or at least for me, I was just very immature in that sense.
Right.
Where I was very concerned about, oh no, I need to be there. She needs to be with me. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If I need time, I need time. And it's okay. If I'm working, I need working. If I'm in the gym, if I am at home with a fan, sitting in front of the TV watching UFC and it's just blowing up my shorts, that's fine too.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I think that just like you, former Jesse, it was kind of the opposite, you know, the disjointed family and all those kinds of things. So I'm always going to the events. I'm always there.
Yeah.
And there would be like, I was so tired sometimes from working so much, I'm passed out at the event. I'm in the chair or I'm on the sofa and I'm trying to participate, but my body's like, hey man, you need a break.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm falling asleep. And I think, you know, what happens is, what we're saying is, I'm not afraid to be my true and authentic self anymore. From my outward expression to, hey, I want to do this, or I heard you, or no, I'm you know what? You go on ahead and go over there. I'm gonna be over here.
Yeah.
And it's okay because I realize, you know, my value, and I also recognize what I need as a person. And I recognize I can't give you my best if I'm not at my best. And if I'm not pouring into my gas tank ever, and I'm just always pouring into the other people's, you know, gas tanks or emotional banks as around me, well, pretty soon my vehicle is going to break down.
Yeah.
It needs that love and support and maintenance too. And a lot of that love and support, I think people look for it to come outward. It comes inward. It comes from you. You got to be your own. You got to be your own biggest advocate, and you got to make sure that you're taking that time. Like one thing now,
and you got to make sure that your partner understands that and accepts you for that. The fact that you're looking out for yourself.
100%. One of the things now, if I'm dating or in the, you know, the relationship that I'm in now, we understand that, hey, how much time do you think should be dedicated to yourselves, and how do you think moving forward we should preserve our individuality in this relationship? And it was a mutual understanding of like, hey, I think at least one day a week, that's like your day.
It's your day.
That's your day. You should be able to go do what you need to do, go where you want to go. And if you need more, that's fine too. Just communicate about it.
If you want to go visit your cousin in Alabama, go for it.
Go.
But I think a lot of couples don't do. It's like it's a no-go.
No, it's a no-go, or they're not intentional about it, and they fall into a trap where, okay, we went to your parents this week. This week, I need you to come on this double date. And okay, next week it's a football game, and before you know it, you've never really said, but hey, what about this book that I want to read, or what about I really wanted to go to the the arts and crafts or the farmers market, whatever it is, whatever that you're into, make time for it. You've got to be intentional. And then I think the other thing that happens too is a lot of times, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but people who think from an emotional standpoint versus a logical standpoint, you got to schedule stuff. You just have to. Oh, but that takes out the mystery and the fun and this and that. Okay, well, if we don't schedule it, then it just doesn't happen.
I'm guilty of this. You're preaching to me right now.
You know, what's that saying? You plan to fail, or prepare to plan.
No. Fail to prepare to fail.
Yeah, fail to prepare to fail. If you don't prepare, if you don't build in that time, Hey, I need that time to go to the sauna. Hey, I need that time to go to the gym. Hey, I'm gonna need those 6 hours on Saturday mornings. That's like my time. Hey, date night is Thursday nights. I'm not saying you can't spice up the routine here and there, but what you find is successful entities, whether it's a relationship or Walmart, they run a tight schedule. There's some things that happen. There's a retreat here and there, but they run a tight schedule and everybody's happy and it works. So why do we run our relationships and our lives haphazardly? And then look back and like, man, I wonder why she's mad that we haven't done anything in 7 months.
You haven't
planned anything, you know? Or I wonder why he's mad that well, because you're every girl's night and everything you're dragging him to, and maybe he needs that time in the man cave to watch the game and chill with the boys, or go ride ATV or whatever it is he's into, paint and just paint and just have headphones on and just be in his room painting, whatever it might be. Give each other that space so that you don't lose yourselves in each other. You know, I'm definitely a lot more adamant about standing on business and standing on those principles, because I recognize that, hey, I tried it the other way and without it, and I gave it my best, and it was like, man, the more I gave, the goalpost kept moving, and I could never reach it. And I could never reach it until eventually there was no goalpost.
Yeah.
And so it's important. I think it's necessary for the longevity of the relationship and for the longevity of you as a person.
For sure. So tell me a little bit about, and I'm sorry to jump. We've covered a couple of subjects, and you mentioned business. So I was like, I don't even know what business Jesse runs really. Tell me a little bit about your business and what you're doing, what you got going on.
So formally, the title and what I would tell people that are in the business, construction industry specifically, is permit expediting.
Okay.
Permit expediting, for anybody that doesn't know, is we're the liaison between either the consumer or the business and the government agency that issues the building permit or license.
Got you.
Typically, our customers are homeowners, but we're shifting a lot towards larger commercial customers. So your architects and your big contractors. There's some developers in the mix, but essentially, I explain it to people like, look, you wouldn't go to court without a lawyer, right? I mean, you can. It's your right. Yeah, you can go to self-legal help and try to figure out what form. Yeah, but good luck. Good luck. And when you get dunked on in court, don't be mad that you didn't know. Mm-hmm. Same thing with expediting. Just the subject matter expert. We know the forms. We know the forms that they don't tell you need. We know, they might specify in one county that it has to be wet signed and sealed, which means they want to actually be able to feel the ink. It can't be a copy. Mm-hmm. So if you come with copies, you're going to get kicked back. You just wasted time. Little nuances like that we know. And then the big value add, I think, is the relationships, because we're dealing with, it's people, right? A government agency is just a collection of people that are issuing permits or regulating and enforcing codes and laws, right? So, but it's people interacting with people. So if John Doe comes in off the street and he has a problem, they might just kick him back to the end of the line. He has a problem, they did their job. But if I come in, I'm not saying it's preferential treatment, but they know me. They know how to reach out to me. They know that I speak their language. They're not going to have to spend a half hour explaining every acronym and term to me. So they can call me and say, hey, you need to fix this and this. Can you have it done by 3:00? Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll get it right over to you. I call the customer, they get it to me, I get it to them. Boom, I just saved you. So that's what we do. It's branched out into, recently I became a general contractor here in Florida.
Congrats.
Thanks. And I'm studying also to become a roofing contractor, so I plan to have that license very, very soon. We're doing surety and performance bonds, which are whenever you're doing work in the public right of way, so streets, sidewalks, you need to post a bond. And it can be cash or it can be this surety and performance bond. And so I was finding that with my customers, we were just kind of kicking them back to their insurance company, like, hey, your permit's ready, but we need this bond. And they couldn't find it. The insurance company didn't provide it. Next thing you know, the permit lapsed. So I was like, well, why don't we just partner with somebody and provide it?
Yeah.
Then there's a design aspect to it, the architecture and engineering piece. So just essentially, I started with the permitting, but I want to vertically integrate the construction process. And the long-term goal is to be my own developer, where I'm either, fixing and flipping, or I'm fixing and then I'm holding on to rent and building a portfolio that, can then be scaled up or can be sold, but I have that portfolio.
So you want to do more homes, not commercial.
I mean, I think I'm going to have to start with homes just because the barrier to entry, but man, the goal would be multifamily.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Multifamily. It's more stable. You know, multifamily, you 30, 50, 500 units. Now, if, 10% of your portfolio moves out, you're fine. You're still cash flowing. You can hire a property manager because the rent roll will cover it and all those types of things. Single family, if you just have one or two, that's another job. If one of your tenant moves out, you're 50% down on occupancy. That's a problem. And you don't really have the money to have a property management company because the rent roll is not high enough. So I think you start that way and you build that up, but ideally, as quickly as you can, get into 30 units and plus, that's where you want to be.
I have my friend up the road. His name is Grant Cardone. You might know him.
Yeah.
No, I was kidding.
Yeah.
I'll connect you with him.
No, it's funny you mentioned. We are invested in a lot of his funds.
Oh, really?
And, I won't say it's the most glamorous returns. I'm waiting to see if he'll deliver on, some of the promises. So far, he's delivered on all of them. I'm not going to bash him. He's done what he said he's going to do. But it makes a lot of sense. The business model makes sense to me. The fund, knowing what I know now, there might be some other funds that I look at first, and just anecdotally, there's some other investments I've made that the ROI has been better. But one thing I like about the real estate is the depreciation and the consistency. Like, people might let a lot of things go before they're like, I don't think I'm going to pay my rent this month.
Yeah, they're going to pay the rent.
Right. And so just having that consistency and seeing how it performed through COVID, through recession, through all these FTX meltdown. Yeah. Like, I got burned on the FTX meltdown.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and there's still, there's crypto I can't get out. It's locked up. They're bankrupt. Oh, yeah, you can do this and that.
Oh, no, and they're trying to place a value on Bitcoin right now, like 16,000 for.
Right.
I saw that, and I was like, that's crazy. Bitcoin today is at 45.
Right.
I mean, it's fluctuating between 42, 46, something like that, but it's like you're placing a $16,000 value on an asset that's 45 right now. It's insane.
It's crazy. And that's a losing fight. I've seen bankruptcy proceedings just being on my side, and we provide service for somebody, and I think they're gonna pay me, and I'll pay you, checks in the mail. Next thing you know, 3 months later, they're bankrupt. And now I because I didn't know, I file, and I'm 279th in line to get money, and I see all these big claims. The first 10 claims are over $10 million, and he's only worth $6 million.
So you already know.
I already know. I'm not going to get anything. Yeah, it's a loss. So you got to write it off. So I like the multifamily. I like the real estate. You can leverage against it. The way that he does it as a I guess I think I'm a general partner or limited partner. Whichever's lower. I'd have to go back and check. I think it's just a general partner. I can't borrow against it. I can't add the depreciation back. So when you're going to get loans, that's some things that you got to be careful about, because if you take too much of a loss, then if you're the actual owner of the property, they don't count depreciation against you. It's pretty cool. You can add it back as income when you're going to get credit or debt, and they'll extend that product to you. But your partner, if they're a limited partner, they don't do that. They're like, oh no, you took that loss. You shouldn't have taken that loss. But on the front end, you don't have to pay that tax bill. So it's like you have to kind of plan ahead and weigh out, what do you want to do in that upcoming year? And do you want to take the loss up front and have the tax savings, or are you looking to be able to have more access to debt?
Yeah, I want to get into real estate myself. I have my first rental property, which is pretty cool, because it's just residual income.
Right.
And then, you're building equity. Somebody else is paying off the mortgage, and then you get a check every month, basically. I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So I was actually going to start a real estate course now, January 8th, but I just postponed it because I got too much going on here. Here I am sitting on a podcast.
Well, and the other cool thing with that is, you have your tenant there, so you could leverage that property. You could get a HELOC, or you could do a loan against that property and wash, rinse, and repeat. So I guess part of the reason I wanted to go back to go to real estate school was to learn more about that, because part of me feels like that's your mentality, because obviously, there's equity, right? Let's say if I have 200 grand right now that I could pull from that. Yeah.
But then part of me is like, no, I want to sit, let's just leave that until that's paid off. But I get it. Yeah, it makes sense, because the more I wait trying to save money on this end for the next property, the more property values are just going up and up and up. And I could have had 2 or 3 increasing in value. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You can wait whatever it is, 15, 30 years to pay it off. And you'll have a crazy amount of equity. But like, what would happen if you pulled out the 200 now, got another one, got a tenant in it, and you just wash, rinse, repeat. Now you have 10 properties.
And then imagine that in 15 years.
Right. And you didn't really use any of your money. It's the tenant's money. It's the bank's money. It's not like Adrian's money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's interest, and you have to make sure you do it smart and right.
Yeah.
You want to, buy at a time of when there's blood on the street and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I man, pull that equity out. I mean, that's me.
Yeah.
I pull
No. It's
out.
cool. So again, the reason I have these I get like maybe the most views I've had on one of these podcasts is probably like 400 views, and then between Spotify and YouTube, it's not that many.
Right.
But the value that I get from these conversations every time is either a life lesson, like things that just circle my mind, a lesson on real estate, a lesson on business, a lesson on relationships. So to me, this has become my little life hack that has so much value to me personally, and to whoever listens might gain something from it. But I'm probably going to take your advice and look at that a little bit closer and say, well, because in 2017, had I said, oh, I have some equity here, let me pull it, let me buy something else.
Yeah.
Just one more.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
Right.
It's crazy. How much have property values gone up in Miami from 2017 to 2023?
I'm up in value on both properties over 40%.
Over 40% on real estate.
Right.
And you're gaining equity.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm up 40%. Yeah, I there's a method. I don't remember it right now, and it's a shame, but there's a forum online. Because you mentioned going back to school, but a lot of this stuff you can do online, like without having to go to the formal education. I'm not knocking it, but it's just that information's accessible. Can't remember the name of the forum. I'll have to get it for you, but it's called the Burr method. I think it's BURR or 3 R's, and it talks about like you buy, you rehab it, then you keep it, you rent it, and then you pull out the equity and you repeat. It's exactly what we're talking about. And they get very in depth on, the pitfalls and what to avoid and, what to do. And then, you got to be careful with what requires permits, what doesn't, so that way you don't get caught up.
And don't overextend yourself either.
And don't overextend yourself. Yeah. Because when you're using debt, it's a double-edged sword. You can acquire things much more quickly, and that's one of the benefits of this country, because other countries, they don't like debt. What is that? No, either you have the money or you don't. But here you can leverage it, but just make sure that you don't over-leverage, and then a rainy day happen, and now you can't cover. You can't cover the spread.
Yeah, you can't cover 6 properties.
Right.
You're done.
Right.
The reason I wanted to go back to real estate school was more so when I make my next purchase to not have to give up that 3%.
Oh, 3%.
Yeah. Like, I mean, every time I see how much I'm giving up, no offense to you realtors, but I just want to be able to do it on my own.
Right.
It's not rocket science to me.
Right.
It's my money. It's like, why should I hand this over to you because you know how to fill out a contract and how to work with a title agency? Like, I want to keep that side, that part of it on my side. That's all.
It's funny because I feel like I have a different mentality.
What is it?
Man, keep that 3%. Because if I'm focused on my core business, right, the permitting, if I blow that up, I don't want to call it a waste of time, but the time that I invest becoming certified as a realtor to get that 3%, what if I were to dump that time back into what I've already got going on?
It's 3 weeks.
Oh, it's only 3 weeks?
Yeah,
okay.
It's 3 weeks.
Okay.
Man.
Okay. That's fair.
That's why.
That's fair.
If it's 3 weeks and I can really, and I have to avoid that multiple times, it's not going to be, I'm hoping, right? This is going to be multiple purchases as I move forward. That's the only reason why. I feel like I'm leveraging 3 weeks for.
Oh, no. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I thought it was going to be like a 4-year program or something. I was going to be like, pay that. I'm a big proponent of dive narrow and deep, stay in your field, blow it up as much as possible, and then get good experts around you and pay them what they're worth.
That's exactly what I'm doing here.
Because you might not, like, one of the biggest problems I see in my business is I see a lot of developers coming in, or they call themselves developers, right? And they try to cut so many corners, and they're trying to stretch these margins and pinch and squeeze, and it's like, God, what a stressful life. Like, I don't want your life at all. I look at you and I'm like, I would rather make half and be able to chill and sleep good at night than make what you're making. But it's like everything's a fire drill, everything's you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's crazy.
No, I don't want that. I love quality of life.
Yeah.
I mean, we're both in the gym every day, and
Right.
we spend a few hours in there. We go to
Yeah.
the cold plunge, we go to the steam room. Like, we enjoy ourselves.
Of course.
And that's the goal, because we don't know how long we're going to be here.
Right.
So I better enjoy my day to day. Yeah, I come in here, I work hard, but I'm going to have
Right.
the moments for myself, just to enjoy it. That's
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think, then going to real estate school would be great. And you have a business, so you know about leveraging lines of credit and business loans. The SBA just actually came out with a new fast track loan, $150,000.
I actually haven't pulled any credit for this.
No?
No, I just was looking at a line of credit recently, just to see what I should do. Actually, educate me. So let's say if I pull a line of credit,
Yeah.
God forbid, let's say I pull $400,000.
Right.
I can use that for anything. I can use it for payroll. I can use it to acquire property. I can use it for anything. It's my money.
It's like a credit card, yeah. And they'll charge you whatever the interest rate is. They'll charge you, on an annual basis. So I think right now, like prime rate is around 7%. They usually put a couple points on top.
Yeah, I think it was like 9 or 10% from Chase.
Yeah, so 10%. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
7 plus 2 points or 3 points. You pull it out, $400,000. You're gonna pay $40,000 in interest annually, 10% a year, and yeah, you can use it for whatever. It's like somebody gave you a loan.
Say I go bankrupt.
Yeah. You have to see if it's secured or unsecured. If it's secured, when you're signing the documents, you're putting up collateral. Whatever that collateral could be, your business, could be a house, could be whatever.
Gotcha. Okay.
If it's unsecured, then they're out. They're out of luck.
Yeah, it's just growing a business again. So it goes back to why conversations are important, right?
Right.
Because you mentioned to me like pulling equity out of a house, and now you're talking about lines of credit, and I'm realizing as we're talking that I have a lot of my dad's old school mentality where it's like, no, work, make money, and then reinvest into the business that way. Instead of, this is the United States. In Colombia, you can't do this.
Right.
You have to pay cash.
Right.
Everything has to be bought outright, and that's it. You purchase a car, it's not a car loan. You purchase a home.
Right.
There's no mortgage. It's like, did you buy the house because you had the money and you handed it to somebody?
Right.
But this is the USA.
Yeah.
I just have to, because if I want to grow, but it's more risk, more reward, but more risk, also more potential for a downfall. So I guess that's why it's like this tightrope. Which way do I want to swing?
Yeah. I like the SBA loans a lot. I don't know if you can necessarily leverage them to fix and flip properties, but just like working capital for your business, if you wanted to, blow up your marketing or whatever it might be, they have great interest rates. They take a long time to close. But when you look at what you can make back, in comparison to what they're giving you the money for, I mean, that's what it's designed for.
What's the average SBA loan interest rate?
More or less. They're like prime plus 1%. So I think right now they have a fast track loan and it's $150,000. They're not taking into account any of your other debt. If you have a credit score of 660 or above, you qualify. There's a couple other qualifications too, but yeah, 8% for $150K. Like, you're not going to find that.
That's awesome.
From other places. And then, if just for example, like, I know you mentioned you wanted to expand over Florida. What if you dumped $150K into your advertising? I mean, not all at once.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no, I understand.
Strategically in phases. You see, oh wow, this ad is really it's hitting Tampa hard. We're getting a ton of conversions. Okay, I'm going to put $20,000 into that ad. Like, what would that do? It becomes a science.
That's cool.
Or I really need to hire 3 more clinicians. Okay, well, at the rate that my business is growing, it's going to take X amount. But if I could get this loan, I can hire them now.
Yeah.
You'll make back that 8%, no problem.
Yeah, the main thing, at least in this business, the main thing is drawing the patient volume and then hiring.
Yeah.
But then it's a cat and mouse game, because when you hire a clinician, it takes 3 months for them to get credentialed.
Right.
Right. To get approved by all these insurance companies.
Right.
So, but drawing the volume, drawing the demand is always first.
Right.
It's cool, man. This is a good conversation, because it definitely gets my brain churning a little bit. But at the end of the day, that's why I think what I'm doing right now with, I mentioned earlier, I'm fixing the website, looking at SEO, making sure that we can measure all of these things truly, so we can really target the marketing. I'm 3.5 years into this game, and it's so I feel like I'm at a point where this could definitely just we could grow exponentially, or we could just stay and coast along.
Right.
I still want to grow. I mean, for sure, I want to grow.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying that day to day. I'm enjoying the conversations with the marketing team. I'm enjoying like, oh, what can we do here? Or
Right.
how can we target Naples? Naples is Hillsborough County has like no clinicians right now. How do I get in there? Hey, we have a market in Orlando. Should we have a small office space in Orlando? Because that way, when people check psychiatry near me, we pop up.
Right.
Just different things like that, where we're just trying to brainstorm and see how we can grow. But
Right.
would it be cool to have somebody who is like an expert marketer from, I don't know, name me Cerebral, right? One of these major national brands for mental health,
Right.
and acquire somebody like that who comes in and says, oh, we'll rip this market, no problem, with much less revenue than what you're going to waste right now if you keep doing it this way.
Right.
So it's cool. It's cool, Jesse.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Anything else you want to impart on the people before we go?
No, I mean, I just really appreciated the opportunity to be here, kind of talk to you, get to know you better, get to share a little bit more. I thought about the quote that you mentioned earlier that I told you. I think what it was, and I got this quote, I'm not going to take credit for it, but it's funny. One of my mentors at the time from Philly, he said, hey man, there's nothing unique about your story. It's just your turn. And that really hit me with like, hey, I got to take ownership of this and not be afraid to reach out to people and gain wisdom. I feel like a lot of times, we suffer in silence. Talk to people, man.
Yeah.
Talk to people, share, go, see what you're going through, because you never know what they might be able to help you with or what you might be able to help them with. Yeah, so yeah, just don't be afraid to share.
That's cool, man. Yeah, actually, when I invited you on here because I had thought about it before.
Right.
And we had spoken about it last year at some point, just randomly. But I had to find out how to run this myself because I just kept on going through people who were doing it. Now I just learned how to put it together myself. But I was on the Stairmaster and I was like, hey, you mentioned to me that you had the week off. So I was like, oh, you're not doing anything tomorrow?
Yeah.
Let's go talk on the podcast.
Yeah.
And the cool part about this is how often do you sit down? This is like a mandate for me.
Right.
All right. I just get to sit down and talk to a dude who I don't really know. I see him. We smile at each other every day. We say, what's up? We share, we exchange some conversations, but there's not that time to really go how we just did. We go in a little bit more just in depth about our life, our perceptions, how we develop those perceptions, what our struggles are, our vulnerabilities.
Right.
And that's how you build connection.
Absolutely.
And so every time I sit down with someone here, damn, I just feel like the connection is that much better because I took the time to sit down with them.
Right.
And we're at a day and age where if I invited you to go have coffee for a little while, we probably wouldn't sit down and have this conversation this long because we'll be looking at our phones or we'll be doing something else. So this is my life hack right now, and I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna run with it. So, but thank you, Jesse Tarr. Thank you so much for. Oh, and I'm gonna apologize to Kenzo because I called you Enzo earlier. And one day you're gonna hear this, and you're gonna be like, "That dude didn't even say my name right." So, Kenzo, thank you, man. Thank you for what you're imparting on your dad. Thank you for coming into this world and giving that hope and that joy back to your father because he's a good man. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate you, bro.
Thanks a lot. Pleasure.
Thank you. That's a wrap.
This was dope. A lot of fun. We didn't touch our sandwiches.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't want to be chewing